Tracy Bogert, good morning. Shannon, can you hear me? Remind me, what was the thing we're doing in the 6? A promo for Fox?
So they just asked if we had, really short and sweet. And
Tracy Bogert, good morning. Shannon, can you hear me?
Hang
on a second. I'm sorry about that. What was the thing we're doing in the 6? Okay, I'm losing my mind here. Why is that doing that? Okay.
Sorry, it's on my computer and it would not.
Okay. So it's, what are we doing?
So they just said, if you have anything that says, and they sent the quote, NASCAR's coming to Austin for the first time this weekend.
Got it.
Super short.
So you want to do that? And then we'll talk about it a little bit and say a few words?
Certainly. We can do that. Matthew McConaughey is the Grand Marshal for the race.
Okay, great.
He's in town.
Yeah. You just bring it up and we'll talk about it. And I apologize. I meant to, and I'm going to go look for it now. Bring up your email. I've had crazy morning. My printer crashed. I couldn't find my keys on the way out the door. It's been just insane. So I'm where I am at 6:08, where I should be at like 5:40. I don't have a poll up. So anyway, where is? There it is. Okay. So were you thinking Roger and Drew for the high five? That probably makes the most sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that sounds right up your alley, am I right?
Oh God, yes. That's like heaven on earth. I mean, if I could pick 2 football players to hang with ever, it'd be those guys. Tracy Bogert, Hector Gomez, Anthony Del Toro. Good morning, everybody. Okay. Beautiful. Okay. So we'll hit NASCAR pretty early on here. Duel. You made it. We made it. It's Friday, May 21st. A great sports weekend. All kinds of great stuff coming. Thank you for being here. It is the Chris Duel Show, along with Shannon Salty Sweeney. And we got an unbelievable show for you this morning. Great guests, lots to talk about. Shannon, how are you doing this morning?
I am doing all right, sir. It did not rain yesterday. It was beautiful. I actually had lunch at Chewy's. Thought of you as you love their crack salsa.
I do.
Had a midday margarita. It was pretty great. It was truly the start of the weekend on a Thursday for me.
Outstanding. Now I must ask, as you know, that Fresca salsa at Chewy's is addictive. I can just stand there and just devour it. I don't even have to get a meal. Just give me the chips, give me the Fresca salsa, give me a beer. I'm good. Did you have the Fresca salsa with chips?
I am not as into the Fresca salsa as you are. I am more on the creamy jalapeno wave as well as the queso. Definitely a top 5 queso in Austin for me.
Beautiful.
I don't know about y'all. Have Chewy's, right?
We do have Chewy's. God,
North,
yes.
North San Antonio.
Yeah.
So I think it probably tastes the same, right?
I think so. I think it's consistent. I've been to a few different ones.
Know.
Yeah.
That's good to know because I can always go for Chewy's and that's good to know.
Yeah. So when you're ever in San Antonio, you can get your Chewy's fix just wherever you are, up and down I-35.
Hey, take me somewhere a little more local. Get me in the mix.
We'll do that. We'll do all of the above. Someday you've got to do downtown. It was even open in World War II. It's been here forever. It's called Mi Tierra. It's a Mexican restaurant downtown, open 24 hours. There's Christmas lights all over the interior. You walk in and there's a big mural of Bill Clinton. When he was president, and even when he was running for president in 92, whenever he would come through San Antonio, he would go to Mi Tierra. It's like his favorite Mexican restaurant in San Antonio. So he's he's one of the favorites there, among others. So,
and the specialty there is
everything.
Okay.
Gosh, yeah, whatever Mexican. I mean, you love enchilada. I mean, I love the cheese. I'm like a cheese enchilada guy. I don't need frills I don't need chicken special frou. Just give me enchiladas with cheese. Pour some sauce on top. Give me some rice and beans, some tortillas to butter, and some beer to drink, and I'm good to go.
I mean, to be fair, Mexican food, like, for the most part, it's do you want your rice and beans inside, next to, or on top?
Exactly.
And then pick your filling.
And wherever you put it, it's just all good.
Yeah.
It's just so good. Well, Shannon, we mentioned it at the top, a huge, huge sports weekend on so many levels, not only what we can watch on television, but some big sports coming to Austin this weekend.
Yeah, we're welcoming NASCAR to Austin for the first time ever.
Amazing. That is fantastic.
Almost, we've had this F1 track, it feels like for forever, and yet it still feels very new. So it's kind of amazing that we're getting NASCAR for the very first time. And, Matthew McConaughey, we know him. He'll be there, Grand Marshal, waving the flag to get things kicked off. So a huge weekend for that, as well as, Texas baseball has a homestand. Unfortunately, they dropped a game last night, but they did it in front of what is allowed to be now a full crowd, as Texas announced yesterday that all outdoor sporting events are able to be at 100% capacity. Face masks optional, so you do you.
Yeah.
But it's exciting that we are moving in that direction from a year ago when everything was in question to fans getting back in the stands and a little bit of normalcy.
I love Matthew McConaughey as the Grand Marshal of the NASCAR event. I mean, he, just like as you've mentioned many times, his association with Austin FC. I mean, he's the perfect face of Austin, if not the face of Texas. I'd say it's him and Willie to me. But I mean, I just when Matthew McConaughey gets involved, as he does with NASCAR this weekend, that's so cool.
Does he get to do a speech at all?
I hope so.
Because that's what I mean. That's where he shines. Is anytime you can get a monologue from that man.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. He should, do the, I don't even know if they do the start your engines, and he should give a pep talk to all the drivers before they tear on out of there. God, he's so cool. We got a great show this morning. One of, and he was here in the early days of Tim Duncan. He remains a great friend of Tim Duncan. He has chosen to stay in San Antonio. His NBA career took him to Oklahoma City, to New Orleans, to Philadelphia, but he did win a ring with Tim Duncan here in San Antonio. Antonio Daniels, who is now an analyst, an NBA analyst, and I've heard him a lot, like on the Dan Patrick Show and on Colin Cowherd. He's the color analyst for the New Orleans Pelicans. So I want to talk, Shannon, NBA playoffs with Antonio Daniels. He's going to join us in less than 2 hours at about 8:06. He is just fascinating, knows his NBA, knows the personnel. Just want to get his thoughts on everything NBA. Plus, he's got a cool summer camp, basketball camp for kids coming up, I think in June. He'll give us the details on that.
Yeah, camps for kids are I never went to any. Like, I did Texas soccer camp, but it was just kind of called Texas soccer camp. I don't remember any players coming out or anything. So I love seeing all of these professional athletes coming back to, the states they played in or even their hometowns and coaching up the local kids.
And something I'm going to ask Antonio Daniels. I'm listening after our show yesterday, Shannon. I'm minding my own business, listening to our radio stations, and Dan Patrick was on, and he brings on Robert Horry. And you will recall Rudy Tomjanovich, when he had his Hall of Fame acceptance speech, he mentioned Robert Horry and said Robert Horry deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, with his 7 championships and all that Robert Horry has done. So Robert Horry's talking to Dan Patrick, and a topic of conversation that you and I had now that the Spurs have been eliminated is what's next for the Spurs, and is there anything different next for Coach Greg Popovich? And I've been warning all along, just in case. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't want it to happen, but I've been warning Spurs fans, and I did before the game the other night that eliminated them in Memphis, be very mindful and savor every moment you have of Greg Popovich, because you don't know how much of Greg Popovich you have left as head coach of the San Antonio Spurs. So Robert Horry's on yesterday with Dan Patrick, and Dan Patrick asks him straight up. He said, Dan said, I was watching the way Greg Popovich left the court last night against the Memphis Grizzlies. Do you think he's done? Do you think he'll walk away this offseason? And Robert Horry said, yes, I do. He said, I think he's done. I think he's going to leave and go do something else. He's got a lot of other interests. And Robert, and I disagree with this completely, Robert Horry said, I think it's time for him to go, which kind of, my jaw dropped a little bit, and I think he's off base there. But more and more, I'm hearing this narrative come up, Shannon. I hope none of us know what we're talking about when it comes to Pop, and I don't think we do, but I think it's a cautionary proposition, and it's something I certainly want you and I to talk to Antonio Daniels about.
As a third-party outsider here, and you tweeted something yesterday on which alluded to, the question of whether or not Pop should go. A lot of people had responses to that. I've seen other people tweet things and been going through those responses as well. And it's so interesting how passionate people are on, yes, he's leaving. This is why. No, he's staying. This is why. When, as a Texas fan, we're used to slamming the door on people because, they've dragged the team down, or they've lost an unimaginable game that they should have won. Pop hasn't necessarily done anything to allow others to decide his fate at this point.
No.
So a lot of hearsay, but again, if he retires, I won't be shocked. And if he comes back, I won't be shocked, just given the kind of guy he is. That is interesting that he says it's, that he thinks he has something else to do.
Well, and it clearly,
I'm sure he has hobbies. I'm not saying he doesn't, but
and we all know he's a Renaissance man. He owns wineries. He loves wine and fine wines. Exactly. I've heard, and when he sold his house in the Dominion, I heard he had this huge wine cellar that had just unbelievable wines in it. That if he ever invited you over, you and I have yet to have been invited over to Pop's place, but if he really likes you, he'll take you down to the wine cellar and bust out some vino. But he's a world traveler. He's a brilliant man, and obviously he's earned the right to do whatever he wants to do. I just think if it happened, and if it happened this summer or whenever it will happen, inevitably someday it will, it's just going to be a tectonic shift in the landscape, certainly for Spurs fans, because all we've known since 97, and before that, he was general manager before he was coach, was Greg Popovich's influence and fingerprints on this team. It is 6:20 right now. We got 3 contests today. At 8:20, while we're talking to Antonio Daniels, we're going to give away tickets to see Korn and Stained at Circuit of the Americas. That's coming up. Shannon will have the details on that for you. But now and at 7:20, we do this also throughout the day 12 times on the 20s. Your chance to win $1,000. It's the Grand in Your Hand cash contest. You're going to get a keyword right now. You go to either website, AM 1300 The Zone or Ticket 760. Put that keyword there at the website where it tells you to, and you're in. You got a shot at $1,000. Here it is.
Right now, here's your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Joy. That's joy. Enter it now.
Joy. Joy is the key. Joy is the key word. Shannon, I am wearing my Houston Astros baseball cap, and I should, because yesterday it was a day game. The Houston Astros defeat the Oakland A's 8-4, and with that victory, they are now back in first place in the AL West. And to all of the haters, I say, suck it, haters. The Astros are back in first place. I feel much better now.
Yeah, it feels good to be number one.
Yes.
Anywhere in the season, it always feels good to be number one.
And they scored 8 runs yesterday. They scored 8 runs the night before. They've scored more runs than anybody in Major League Baseball. If they can get some pitching, their bats are now as effective as they always were, and certainly as they were in 2017. And I know, and you brought this up earlier in the week, it's early in the baseball season. It's only May 21st. We got a long way to go, and different things can happen, and you got to stay healthy. But if the Astros can continue to play like this offensively, scoring the runs they're scoring, and then down the stretch, if they continue to be in first place and in contention, I'll never forget in 2017 they went and got Justin Verlander late in the season, right before the playoff run, and boom, that was a big part of what enabled them to win the World Series. Verlander, I don't think expected to come back this year, certainly, but if they get a little bit of pitching help down the road, or if their pitching performs the way that it should, I mean, we could be once again seeing the Houston Astros knocking on the door of and maybe winning the World Series this year.
Do you think that's part of why they're still getting heckled, is because they continue to be at least in the discussion to make a playoff run, and then at best be in contention for that World Series? If they had just dropped off the face of the earth, I don't think anyone would care.
Yeah. Yeah, and you talked about villains earlier. That they're villains now. People, and it's so amazing. It's like Jose Altuve, because of that one video on the home run where it looks like he's saying "Don't touch me," and it's people think he's got a wire on or something. And I love Jose Altuve. He's my favorite baseball player. I love his story. I love that people said, no, you're too short. You can't even try out. Don't even come try out, because you're never going to make it in big time or Major League Baseball. He has gone nationally from a cuddly, lovable teddy bear to a villain. People yell obscenities at him. They hate him. He's the face of the Astros cheating scandal to a lot of people. It's unfair it must cause him and his family, I would think, a lot of anguish that we don't hear about.
Yeah, and we'll be talking some Hall of Fame here shortly in the next segment. But when it pertains to players who were villains, but they performed well on their field of play, and then they go into the Hall of Fame, for him, because he certainly is on that trajectory, for me anyway, you hope that by that point people will have gotten over themselves. It is fun though. I don't think I've ever been a fan of the villain team, so I'm enjoying it.
That's a good point. That's a really, other than, some people think the Cowboys are villains over the years when they were just always, I know. Yeah. But I'm saying, maybe in the Landry era or the Jimmy Johnson era, again, just because they kept on winning, the people. So, but again, I've never felt like the Cowboys were villains. Obviously, as a Spurs fan, I've never felt they were villains. Now, after the fact, USC, with their Reggie Bush and cheating scandals and getting stripped of scholarships and vacating wins in the national championship they had against Oklahoma. So they were kind of villains after the fact. So I'm kind of an alum and fan of a villain college football team, but not. I agree with you. It is kind of weird to embrace the hate that is being rained down on the Astros.
Bring it on.
Bring it on.
I love it. I've actually got some Astros hate in the Salty Shakedown today.
Woo! I like it. All right. Coming up, the high five play of the day. And I didn't tell you the other guest, by the way. So Antonio Daniels at 8:06. He is spectacular. All of our guests are spectacular. Coach A, Paul Alexander, we love him, at 7:06. His thoughts on Tim Tebow. There was Tebow news yesterday. It was made official that he signed. Let's see. James Allen, speaking of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, our good friend James Allen from the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We will talk all things sports. We will talk PGA Championship, NBA playoffs. Wizards punched their ticket last night. Can the Memphis Grizzlies upset the Golden State Warriors? Almost everybody just assumes the Warriors are going to win tonight. We'll talk about that and a whole lot more. She is Shannon Salty Sweeney. Didn't even get a chance to introduce the boy wonder, Jeremy Fouts, our soundscape stylist. We will do that coming up as well. Lots coming up. We're with you till 9. Thanks for hanging out on the Chris Duel Show. All right. Jason Paniagua, Wes Perkins, John Williams, Anthony Del Toro, welcome. Luisa Alanis, Clint Proctor, Greg Helt, Hector Gomez. Welcome, everybody. let's see. Luisa Alanis, welcome in. Michael Rodriguez. Welcome everybody on Facebook. Let's see here. Make sure I hit this correctly.
Memorial Day is almost here. On this solemn day, many Americans will honor and remember the sacrifices of the brave service members to whom we owe our freedom. If you choose to have a few beers and raise a glass to our fallen heroes for the holiday, plan ahead for a safe ride home and hydrate between beers. Whether you designate a driver, call a rideshare service, or take Whether you designate a driver, call a rideshare service, or take public transportation, do your part to keep our community and loved ones safe. A message from Budweiser, Brown Distributing. And loved ones safe. A message from and loved ones safe. And loved ones safe. A message from Budweiser, Brown Distributing, and AM 1300 The Zone, reminding you to Memorial Day is almost. Memorial Day is almost here. On this solemn day, many Americans will honor and remember the sacrifices of the brave service members to whom we owe our freedom. If you choose to have a few beers and and raise a glass to our fallen heroes for the holiday. Plan ahead for a safe ride home and hydrate between beers. Whether you designate a driver, call a rideshare service, or take public transportation, do your part to keep our community and loved ones safe. A message from Budweiser, Brown Distributing, and AM 1300 The Zone, reminding you to drink wiser.
Shannon, Wes Perkins wants to know what your drink of choice is this morning. Duncan's always a good guess. Let's see. There you go. That's very lively. Welcome back. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney and the man behind the music this morning. We don't have him around very often. It's a rare event. It's like a total eclipse of the sun. And oh, by the way, April 8th, 2024, over the state of Texas, the great American eclipse is coming. But I digress. He's bigger than a total eclipse of the sun or Bonnie Tyler's total eclipse of the heart. The lovely, the talented. You know him, you love him, you can't get enough of him. The boy wonder, the pride of Oklahoma Christian University, Jeremy Fouts. Jeremy, how are you?
Pretty good, guys. Thank you for having me. And happy National Pizza Party Day.
Pizza Party Day.
Wait, is this a real pizza party or is this like they
buy one pizza for the whole class and cut it up into the tiniest slices you've ever seen?
It's probably the latter there, where it's the smallest, most minuscule strip of pizza you've ever seen.
This isn't a party. This isn't even a snack.
Mhm.
National Pizza Party Day.
Yes.
My God. When did this all be? Is this just an internet, Twitter? I don't remember, 15 years ago that every day had some ridiculous, it's official National Pizza Party Day, or it's Scotch Tape Day. It's just gotten so ridiculous.
This one has to be new though, because I've seen this pizza party trend occurring a lot recently with people going back into the offices saying everyone's getting a pizza party for their return.
Wow. See, I didn't
We
know
don't
that.
want it. We don't want the pizza party if it's just going to be a tiny little sliver of pizza.
No.
Give us something else.
But as you know, Shannon and Jeremy, perhaps in the era of COVID, you maybe not have seen this as much at a radio station every so often. I don't know where they come from. I guess maybe some advertisers or pizza places, but every so often there will be 5 boxes of pizza that just kind of show up in the break room. And radio people are notorious for just, if there's food in front of them, they're going to grab it and stuff it down their gullets. So
it's part of our payment.
True.
Like, we used to have breakfast tacos every Thursday morning here, and I haven't had. I refuse to go to that restaurant because I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna have it on Thursday.
Yeah, it's coming.
And it's been over a year. I haven't had any pizza for free.
Oh,
I've had to pay for it every time. I don't get paid enough to go buy my own food. That's why
exactly.
I work here.
We work in radio. We
I
should
steal
be
water
fed.
bottles, soda cans, chips, and I bring a to-go box when I know we're having food at the office.
That's funny. When you sign on to radio, they should probably in like your introduction interview go, well, here's what we're going to pay you. The pay rate's not that high, but you do get a lot of free food. You're going to be getting breakfast tacos, pizza,
Now,
all kinds of stuff.
Will it send you to the hospital? Probably.
Well, that's why you really want to make sure you have a health care plan of some kind. All right. It is that time. We like doing this. It's called the high five play of the day because we like giving high fives. We like having a reason for a high five. And high five play of the day is not just the name of the segment. It is two cool locations in the Austin area, one of which Shannon is going to be hosting a big watch party this weekend.
Yes, and Hudson, for all you Austin listeners of Kiss FM and Case 101, will also be in attendance. So come hang out with us. Watch Austin FC versus Nashville at High Five on Anderson Lane. Sipping Sundays are already great, and then you pair it with soccer. So you've got your soccer games, and then $15 craft pitchers, $12 domestic pitchers. And we were just talking about pizza. Get your $5 12-inch pizza. Pretty great. I was telling my sister to come, and she's going to bring some friends, and they were like, well, how much is it going to cost? I said, next to nothing, because for $20, 2 people can eat.
Nice.
And enjoy themselves throughout the entire game. So come hang out. It's going to be great. Also, try your hand at axe throwing. If you hit a bullseye, you could get registered to win a $50 gift card, which is pretty awesome. Now, Chris, today our high five goes to Mr. Drew Pearson. As we know, he is going into the Hall of Fame this August. And I sent you this tweet this morning because I feel like it really pertains to you and your love of the Cowboys. And just this feels like the perfect pairing. Like if you were to pick 2 football players to hang out with, I feel like these would at least be on your Mount Rushmore.
Oh.
But it has been announced that Drew Pearson will have Roger Staubach present him for the Hall of Fame.
Oh my God!
I don't know that it could get any more perfect. Let's say you.
Oh my God! Well, and I love Roger and I love Drew and Drew Pearson, a friend of the show. In fact, we're going to get him back here on the show in the next few days, perhaps next week. Those are my favorite guys. I mean, I grew up a Cowboys fan in the Tom Landry era, and I distinctly remember December 28th, 1975, in front of my television set, watching the playoff game, Cowboys, Minnesota Vikings, Metropolitan Stadium in Bloomington, Minnesota. Cowboys, just time running out, Cowboys down 14-10. Can't really, they've only scored 10 points all game. Vikings were heavy favorites. Cowboys were a wild card team, not even supposed to be in this game. And we all know what happened next. It was the Hail Mary pass. But in that moment, Shannon, as a kid, Roger, like from the 50, line of scrimmage is the 50, chunks the ball downfield toward Drew. I saw what I thought was a flag. So somebody threw an orange onto the field. If you go back and look, somebody threw from the stands an orange. So what I saw was what I thought was a flag. So I'm jumping up going, pass interference. I didn't know that Drew caught the ball. So I'm excited thinking the Cowboys are going to get the ball at about the 10 on a pass interference call. And then the next thing I look and I see Drew in the end zone holding up the football, celebrating. Golden Richards, Robert Newhouse run up and hug him. And then famously, he throws the ball over the top of the stadium and into the parking lot. It was never recovered until, as Drew told us, like 40 years later, somebody claimed to have found that football. But it's to me, you think of your quintessential moment as a kid and as a sports fan. And to me, the Hail Mary pass and Roger Staubach and Drew Pearson. And as an adult, I've had the opportunity to meet both those guys, and they're the greatest guys in the world, as you know. So, God, I can't imagine. Other than Tom Landry returning from the dead to present Drew, that would be cool. They did
have him at the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, right. So, God. I love it. That's for Cowboy fans and for old school Cowboy fans. Roger and Drew together. We got to talk to James Allen about that. He's going to join us at about 8:35. He's from the Pro Football Hall of Fame, so we'll get his thoughts on that it's coming. But couldn't be more perfect, and I love it for Drew. I love it for Roger. I love it for Cowboys fans.
It's giving the people what they want.
Yeah.
And you, sir, have plans to go to this induction.
That's the plan. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And you were already probably going to get to hang out a little bit with Drew. Right, your buddies.
We hope. I know a lot of people are going to want to hang with Drew, but
I don't know if you've put that together, but now Roger's going to be there too.
Oh my God! Oh, God. My head will explode. I will just
the crystal sandwich.
Yeah, I'm gonna elevate. I'm gonna just elevate into the sky. I'm just gonna I'll disappear into the stratosphere. So yeah.
Very
Wow.
cool high five moment today. I almost want to high five you because I just know how excited you are.
I'm so excited, and it's like a future high five moment. It's something we can all look forward to. In fact, I'm trying to think. I know the Hall of Fame game is Thursday, August 5th. That's Cowboys Steelers, appropriately. So then it's that Sunday. So that'll be the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. I think it's Sunday the 8th is the class of 2021 induction where that moment will happen with Roger and Drew. And Drew's been on the show before, and we'll get him back on, and we'll even now we got another reason to talk to Drew. We can talk to him specifically about that. So we'll effort to get him on the show next week. If you're just joining us, it's a great show today. Coming up at 8:06, NBA analyst, former NBA player, former Spur, Antonio Daniels, who is now, among other things, the color analyst of the New Orleans Pelicans, which is cool. I mean, he's got a front row seat to the career of Zion Williamson. But I hear him a lot on national radio as well. Colin Cowherd, Dan Patrick. We'll talk everything NBA playoffs with him coming up at 8:06. Paul Alexander coming up in just about 15 minutes. He's going to join us just after 7 o'clock. We love talking all things football, sports, and life with Paul Alexander. I think Paul also will bring this up to him, Shannon. I think he has said his favorite football player ever is Drew Pearson. I think I recall him saying that. If not, I know Drew is certainly high on his list of all-time greats. So we'll see how he feels about that. And coming up as well, James Allen, Pro Football Hall of Fame, Paul Alexander, and Antonio Daniels. Quite the lineup this morning. It's going to be fun.
Yes, sir. And you mentioned, Drew being a favorite of Paul. That's very high praise when you think about it. Because in a world where the quarterbacks tend to shine, receiver from before we got the mossing, right? Because now that's a huge thing, right? That's what really that sets receivers apart. But we didn't have Randy Moss at that point. He hadn't created his own verb yet.
True.
So for a guy like Drew Pearson to have that high of a place in people's heart is pretty exceptional, and why he should have been in the Hall of Fame sooner.
God.
But we're just happy he's going in.
Thank goodness. And it's one of my pet peeves, Shannon, guys or gals, depending on your sport, who should be honored and be in this case, the Hall of Fame. I'll never forget, and it breaks my heart, Bob Hayes, Dallas Cowboys wide receiver, number 22 Bullet Bob Hayes, who was so deserving of getting into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He did get into the Ring of Honor while he was alive. He had that honor, but then he became very ill, and he wrote a letter to his son. And the letter just said what it would mean to me if I ever got into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And he was it's so weird. Late in Bob Hayes' career, there was I believe it was a cocaine issue very late in his career. And I think some of the voters, some of the pro football writers who were responsible for voting kind of held that against Bob Hayes, which is ridiculous. It had nothing to do with his play on the field. And he, by the way, came back, turned his life around, redeemed himself, became a very, very good man and citizen. So anyway, Bob Hayes dies dead without ever going into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Then about 2 years after he dies, they decide to let him in. And the same thing happened to Ken Stabler. Oakland Raiders quarterback Ken Stabler should have been in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, should have gone to his own ceremony, should have been honored among his peers and football fans, and experienced standing on that podium in Canton, Ohio, and seeing his bust unveiled for eternity. I just thank God. And we saw Drew Pearson that time that he really thought he was getting in, and he was tipped off that he was getting in, and he did not get in, and he became very, very emotional. You can see viscerally how it affects these guys. So I just thank God that Drew Pearson is not going to his grave like Bob Hayes did, like Ken Stabler and others have, without getting this honor. I love that he's getting this honor coming up this summer.
It's very well deserved, and I agree. It's almost as we're talking about this, I'm thinking almost like the Masters of like that year after you win that jacket and you get to carry it around with you.
Yeah.
Like they don't have their jacket yet. That comes after the fact, but the time in between being announced that you're going into the Hall of Fame and leading up to that ceremony has to be a feeling unlike any other, and that excitement just grows with each day.
Yeah.
And for those folks to not get that feeling is sad to think about. So I'm so happy for Drew.
I see on Facebook Live, Jason Paniagua just wrote, and I agree, Cliff Branch, who was the go-to wide receiver of Ken Stabler and the Oakland Raiders, and put up big numbers as well in that era, also passed away without going to the Hall of Fame. And I know it's tough. I know there's only, we could talk to James Allen about this later in the show. He's from the Pro Football Hall of Fame. There's only a certain number of players, so I know it's tough and there are judgment calls, but my heart breaks for those who want it and do deserve it and feel they deserve it and don't get it. It's just too bad. So, all right, there's that. Now, speaking of Hall of Fame, maybe he'll get there as a tight end, Shannon. Tim Tebow arrived at practice yesterday. We now know his number. Do you know, Shannon, do you know Tim Tebow's number with the Jaguars? Mm-hmm. And B, have you ordered your jersey yet?
I wouldn't advise anyone to order the jersey. He's currently sporting number 85, but they said if he does make the roster, it's likely that he will change it to something else. So I wouldn't order a jersey. And if you've already done that, I hope you can get your money back, because there's a chance that he's going to change that number if he actually makes that 53-man roster.
And if he does, and I haven't looked it up, we've talked about this, he used to be number 15. Now with the new relaxation of rules as what players can wear what numbers, a tight end now theoretically could wear number 15. Would Tim Tebow, if it were available to him, wear number 15 if he makes that roster for the Jacksonville Jaguars?
I wouldn't if I was him. New era, new
identity.
I think people are already having a hard enough time for whatever reason getting over that he's even getting a shot here.
Yeah.
I wouldn't give them any more.
I'm still, and that's another question for Paul Alexander, who will talk a little football and more with us here in a few minutes. The knee-jerk angry reaction of people that, led by Des Bryant, followed by people like Tanner Carlson, friend of the show, just people so angry that he's getting this shot. I'm amazed by that. It's like c'est la vie. If he gets a shot, good, get your shot. If you make the team, great. If you don't, hey man, you had your shot. I don't understand why it ticks people off so much.
In a league where we have people with such bad criminal records that just keep getting invited back, what has this guy done?
Huge point.
To anyone.
Huge point. Let's face it. He lives his life. He's kind of like a saint. He's kind of saintly. People may mock him for wearing his spiritual beliefs on his sleeve, but he's not committing crimes. He's helping kids. He's a loyal husband. He's, trying to uplift the people he crosses paths with. I like the guy. All right, coming up, we'll talk lots of football, lots of sports, and more. He's fascinating. He's a Renaissance man. He pulls no punches. Coach A, Paul Alexander, going to join us next. Antonio Daniels at 8:06. James Allen at 8:35. We're with you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. All right. I need... see. Lucinda Sullivan, good morning. Oh, let's see.
We got a phone.
Beautiful. Thank you, sir. Here we come. Paul Alexander on the line.
This is the Chris Duel Show.
You're gonna date this cause tonight. Try to run, try to hide. We're going to the other side.
John Arne Paulson from Norway. Welcome in.
Now, Chris Duel.
Your sports weekend has begun. So much going on. NASCAR at COTA, Austin FC watch party with Shannon Salty Sweeney at High Five, PGA Championship, Astros in first place. My God, it's just, thank God we live in America. Summer is on its way. Looks like the weather's going to be beautiful. Sure was yesterday. Welcome in. It's the Chris Duel Show along with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Couple of notes before we bring in the great Coach A, Paul Alexander. 1 hour from now, former San Antonio Spur, now NBA analyst Antonio Daniels will be joining us an hour from now to talk all things NBA playoffs. His thoughts on Coach Popovich, as we heard Robert Ory on the Dan Patrick Show yesterday, predicting that Coach Pop will step away in this offseason. I hope that's not the case, obviously. So Antonio Daniels in an hour, 8:35, James Allen of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But whenever we can grab him to talk football, to talk sports, and to talk life, we jump at the opportunity. Many of you listening know Paul Alexander, many stops in his broadcasting career, including Austin and San Antonio and around the country. He's done it all: television, radio, news, sports, and more. Now he's taking over the internet with his radically rational movement. Paul Alexander, how you doing this morning?
Chris, very well. Always look forward to this. How are you?
I am even better than usual, Paul, because this morning Shannon sent me some information, and we knew that Drew Pearson, number 88, was going to be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but we only recently found out that the man presenting him is one Roger Thomas Staubach. You have expressed over the years, and you know him, you know both of them, you know Drew Pearson well and have expressed affection for him over the years. Can there be anything more perfect than Roger presenting Drew for the Hall of Fame?
Just absolutely perfect. I mean, this was predictable. You knew it was coming, but having it verified, I mean, I just got a smile on my face that I couldn't wipe off and didn't want to. So much looking forward to that. The unique chemistry between those two men as players and as friends, it's about as inspiring as anything I've ever seen. And, you know, particularly during the core of Drew's career, I was kind of in a formative stage of my life that we all love, where you're just really, really impressionable, you know? And you saw those two guys do what those two guys did, and the way they did it, and the way they did it together. It was positively inspiring, and it remains so all these many years later.
Paul, enlighten me, because these two were a little before my time. I've come to know them and love them as I've gotten more knowledge on the Cowboys' history. But who would you compare this tandem to in today's modern era?
Oh, wow. Gee, I mean, that's kind of difficult. So what you need, let's do this collectively. You need a really, really gritty, resourceful quarterback and a tough guy that comes over the middle and just takes the punishment and takes the pain between the hashes, but has this streak of magic that can just come up with huge plays at times that huge plays had to happen. And the game has changed so much since then. You know, there were several years where Drew Pearson was the Cowboys' leading receiver in a 16-game season, and he had like 46, 47 catches. You know, and you've got receivers now who do that in like a quarter and a half. Things are really different. I love the question, and I'm not backing off from it, but it would have to be a really tough, resourceful quarterback and a receiver who is just willing to pay the price, but always has kind of a magic card in his back pocket. I watched a lot of Drew video this week, and it really has started with his rookie year in 1973. I remember the first time I saw him, and Chris will remember this for sure. The Cowboys' starting receiver at that position was Otto Stowe, who had played with the Dolphins. And about a little after mid-season, and this is 1973, Drew Pearson, undrafted free agent, Otto Stowe broke his leg. So Drew got his first start at Mile High Stadium in Denver against the Broncos. And, you know, I was a huge biggest Cowboys fan on earth, so I knew who the guy was. But Drew Pearson comes in, and this is a really tough game that could have gone either way. And Drew just keeps catching these 15, 18-yard digs between the hashes and just getting detonated like a June bug on a windshield. And this happened again and again and again. And Drew gets up, and he's looking through the ear hole of his helmet, and you're going, what manner of man is this? He was special that day. I mean, I really did. And then at the end of that season, the Cowboys played the Rams in the divisional playoffs, and the Cowboys got off to a big start and a pretty good early lead. It looks like they were going to coast, and then all of a sudden the wheels come off, and the Rams are coming back, and they've closed to, I think, 2 points or something like that. And I'm really thinking, oh, my God, this is going to get away. And all of a sudden, Staubach to Pearson, 83 yards, touchdown, game over. And at that point, there was just no doubt that we were looking at something really special.
Yeah, my goodness. And as you document, Paul, a lot of people forget undrafted free agent out of Tulsa. And think about it. If Otto Stowe doesn't break his leg, does Drew get the opportunity? My goodness. Just what a twist of fate that enabled Drew Pearson to have this career. Shifting to another football topic, Paul, I want to get your thoughts on. I'm a bit amazed at the level of anger among sports people on the radio, on television, sports fans like Tim Tebow, getting an opportunity. And a lot of people, I heard Bobby Carpenter saying yesterday on a national radio show, he's not going to make the team. Don't get all, too crazy about this, but people just angry that Tim Tebow is getting the opportunity. The first guy who reacted immediately was Des Bryant on social media. Are your thoughts on this whole Tim Tebow thing? Is it much ado about nothing, or are you angry that Tim Tebow is getting a chance?
Certainly wouldn't describe it as angry. I do think it's kind of an unnecessary distraction for the Jaguars. And obviously, Urban Meyer's a very, very smart guy, and he doesn't need my help running his football team, but I don't think that was a distraction they needed. Tebow's such a polarizing figure, and I know that over the years, people have gotten after me pretty good about my attitude about Tebow. I have nothing at all against Tim Tebow. The one thing that I said conclusively from the beginning, and I'm wrong sometimes, but I'm right sometimes too. Conclusively, he cannot play quarterback in the National Football League. And I know he had that one magic moment in the playoffs against the Steelers, but conclusively, he can't play quarterback in the NFL. Now, you talk about his new position. To be fair about this, my view is if he had agreed to be a tight end / H-back when he came out of Florida, he would have had a very productive NFL career. I'm not saying he would have been a Pro Bowler. I'm not saying he would have been all pro. He wasn't headed to the Hall of Fame. But that guy could have made a living and made a contribution. He's now 34. Oh, man. And I realize he's in great shape, yada, yada, yada. But, yeah, they got 6 tight ends on their roster. So I think his chances of making the team would be pretty slim, unless, of course, the fix is in. And the fix can be in when it was your head coach who brought you in the first place. People have really dogged me about my views on Tebow. This is what happened. I got nothing at all against the guy. Everybody says that he is a stellar human being. He obviously is a talented athlete. There's no question about that. But when he was attempting to play quarterback in the NFL, there was this faction of people, and I think they're still there, who, because of his religious profile, were convinced that he had to be the second coming of Johnny Unitas. Tim Tebow was denied an opportunity, or if he was ever criticized, it was because of his religious stance. And that was garbage. And that garbage made me mad then, and it frankly makes me mad now. So do I think he wants a chance? Sure. Am I happy for him? Yeah. Do I have anything against Tim Tebow? No. I never had anything against Tim Tebow. I had a lot of eye-rolling reaction, though, to the Tim Tebow nation, because those people, hey, we're not thinking rationally.
Paul, I want to dive into college football a little bit here. Texas football commit and one of the top commits of the country at running back, Jaden Blue, announced via his Twitter that he was going to sit out his high school senior year. He's quite the running back, and he's suffered a few injuries in his career thus far. And he said it's important for him that he's healthy going into his collegiate career, as he then will try and get better and maybe make it to the NFL one day to live out his dream. We've seen players in college say, no, I'm not going to play in the bowl game. I'm not going to play in the last game of the season, depending on where their season stands, because they have draft dreams and they want to prepare for that and don't want to risk injury. I think this is the first time I've heard of a guy sitting out his senior season, especially such a high profile guy, because he doesn't want to risk another injury heading into Texas that next year.
This is a different world for Paul Alexander, is all I can tell you. I mean, I hear that, and it's like, I don't know whether to laugh or cry. But how about this? Because we're always looking for, all of us collectively looking for financial opportunities. Why don't we invent a video game? And all the players in the football video game are players who aren't playing, either at one level or another. Either they're not playing in high school, or they're not playing in college, or they, they've taken a COVID year off. Let's do a video game exclusively involving football players who voluntarily are not playing football. I don't get it.
It is jaw dropping to me as well, Paul, and I think it ties into the whole load management thing that obviously is a big thing in the NBA. When you and I were growing up and watching sports, it's on any level, high school, college, or pro, if you could go, you're going to play. And you brought up money. Yeah, I guess it is an economic decision. Jaden Blue, I guess, is concerned about, for economically on many levels, if he didn't have a chance to be a Texas Longhorn, if he suffered an injury in high school. I mean, on a certain level, I get it, but on a big level, I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, certainly on the big level, I don't get it. And it strikes me that this is kind of risky for Texas, too. I mean, you better be pretty sold on the young man, So, again, the thing I like best about football is football games. And the things I like the best about football players is when they play football. So, yeah, I just have a hard time fully grasping this.
All right. And Paul, and we're going to break here in a moment for a contest. In fact, we might just start this as we approach 7:20, Jeremy. That way I can ask Paul the question and won't have to interrupt him. Just to give you a preview, Paul, it's about Coach Greg Popovich of the San Antonio Spurs. You were a longtime Spurs broadcaster and reporter, among other things. And it has to do with something I heard Robert Ory say on the Dan Patrick Show yesterday. But before that, we do this contest right around the 20s on this show at 6:20 and at 7:20. And oh, by the way, a reminder at 8:20, your chance to win tickets to see the bands Korn and Stained at Circuit of the Americas. That's a different contest coming up in an hour. Right now, it's the Grand in Your Hand cash contest. You're going to get a keyword. Go to either AM 1300 The Zone or Ticket 760's website. Put in the keyword, and you're in the running for $1,000. Here it is. It goes like this.
Right now, here's your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Budget. That's budget. Enter it now.
$1,000 would be good for your budget. The word is budget. Good luck. All right, we're talking with Coach A, Paul Alexander. And Paul, I say it and it's true. You've done it all in the world of sports. And one of the many things you were a Spurs television broadcaster for a while, among many other things. And I know you've often paid keen attention to the San Antonio Spurs and their leader, Greg Popovich. I'm listening to the Dan Patrick Show yesterday, and the guest was Robert Ory, who played for Coach Greg Popovich, was a big part of the 2005 Spurs NBA championship. And Dan Patrick said, I watched the way Pop left the court the other night against Memphis. I think he's leaving. What do you think, Robert Ory? And Robert Ory goes, yes, I think he's leaving as well this offseason. And then Robert Ory followed it up with, and I think it's time for him to go. Just want to get your thoughts on 72-year-old Gregory Charles Popovich. I love the guy. I hope he sticks around another 5 or 7 years and leaves whenever he damn well pleases. But your thoughts on his status and what you think might be next.
I don't have any particular insight into this. I'm just kind of looking at the tea leaves and kind of watching the landscape. And it would not surprise me in the slightest if Pop stepped down during the offseason. There are a lot of things that might make this the right time from his standpoint. I always say this when I'm referencing Greg Popovich in any way. That's one of the 5 smartest human beings I've ever met. He is incredibly knowledgeable. He is incredibly educated. He is incredibly insightful. And I think he's about as smart in his realm as any other human being is in his or her. I know that he could be abrasive, to say the least. I will say that whatever small blessing was involved here, he and I never had any friction. I mean, not once. And it wasn't like we worked together quite frequently. And it wasn't like I was afraid to ask him jackass questions. But I never got a jackass answer back. And I think part of that is if the guy perceives that you're at least coming from an honest place, I think that changes things. And, again, speaking of polarizing figures right now, I read a lot of stuff on Facebook, and the anti-Pop crowd is pretty vociferous right now. And look, people are entitled to their opinions, and I respect that. But the one thing that just does exasperate me is when I hear people say, well, he needs to stick to basketball, or he's clearly not spending enough time as a basketball coach. And see, because he's become so distracted, his coaching abilities have diminished. Folks, again, you don't have to agree with him. I don't have to agree with him all the time. But the point is, anybody who questions his coaching bona fides to this day, I mean, look at what the man has accomplished. And I hear people, yesterday I was reading something. Yeah, well, look, he couldn't win without Tim Duncan. Well, that's kind of the way this works, folks. That's kind of the way this works. I don't know how to tell you this, but you need great players to win championships. And it was no other person than Thomas Wade Landry himself who said coaching only matters when talent is at least relatively equal. So the idea that all of a sudden this guy can't coach anymore, and that the reason he can't coach anymore is because he is stating his political beliefs, that's just not fair. It's not accurate. And again, it's not rational. I do think that his personal level of frustration has gotten to the point that, every single year, you kind of hear statements from him, and you get a little bit of a temperature check on where he stands on coming back. And I have no inside knowledge whatsoever, but it would not shock me in the slightest if he stepped down at this point.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I sure hope he sticks around longer. I can't imagine the day when that news comes down, whether it's this summer or 4 summers from now. It's just as a Spurs fan, it's just going to feel like the earth is shifting and moving with a tectonic earthquake of some kind. Paul Alexander is a tremendous follow on Facebook. In fact, you can not only find him on Facebook, but I highly recommend you put into the Facebook search engine Radically Rational. It is a movement. It is a building site that Paul has. A lot of great videos, a lot of thought-provoking opinion from Paul Alexander, and soon to come, his partner, Lori Pearson. Just great stuff. Paul Alexander, always a pleasure, sir. We love talking to you. Have yourself a great weekend. Thanks for joining us.
Chris and Shannon, thank you so much, and a great weekend to you as well.
Amen. Thanks so much, Paul Alexander. Don't forget, coming up at about 8:06 NBA analyst, former player, former Spur, Antonio Daniels, James Allen of the Pro Football Hall of Fame at 8:35. Coming up next, Shannon's Salty Shakedown, this day in sports history, sports birthdays, and more. You can join us on Facebook Live. We are streaming live video, as we always do, on Ticket 760's Facebook page. And the phone number, if you want to jump in with us at any time, 800-707-9760. That number will be very valuable to you at 8:20 when we give away the Corn and Stained tickets. Jeremy Fouts, your soundscape stylist. More coming up on the Chris Duel Show. All right, I think I'm getting coffee. Good morning, Henry. Welcome in. Carl Fisher. Carl, you will probably meet Pop at some point. People run into him at HEBs. And every report, I've talked to people who've run into Pop at an HEB or somewhere in San Antonio. And, even though he can have a contentious relationship with the media, I have heard he is just absolutely gracious as a person when, meeting civilians, non-media types around town. Which is interesting because some Spurs fans who are uninformed and ridiculous, malign and criticize him. And it's like, my God, he's like maybe the greatest coach in the history of the NBA, certainly the greatest coach to ever step onto a court in San Antonio. Without him and his success, it is highly probable the Spurs would no longer be here in this city. We should be building statues to Greg Popovich.
would also like to wish everybody a very happy National Rapture Party Day. So if you're going to be raptured, or you think you're going to be raptured, you could also have a pizza party, since they coincide on the same day. So definitely the big cheese upstairs like pizza. That's what I would be eating if I was celebrating going to the rapture. That's all I got. Jason says no shrimp on the pizza. Yeah, I'm with that, man. I'm kind of a basic pizza eater. I like pepperoni and sausage. That's pretty much it. I don't like anything extra.
Here we come. Woo! Steve Duraco, good morning. Manuel Gonzalez. Welcome back in. It's the Chris Duel Show, along with Shannon Salty Sweeney, Jeremy Fouts, the boy wonder, providing your soundscape. We are going to have fun till our daddy takes our T-Bird away on a Friday, May 21st. Coming up just after the top of the hour, former NBA player, now NBA analyst. Also talks NBA on Sirius Radio, I remembered. He's the color analyst for the New Orleans Pelicans. Antonio Daniels, who, of all the places he stopped in the NBA, he made his home in Texas, in San Antonio, which is cool. We love that Antonio Daniels is still around here, which is great. He's also got a basketball camp coming up in June. We'll talk to him about that as well. James Allen of the Pro Football Hall of Fame coming up in the 8 o'clock hour as well at 8:35. Your chance to win tickets to see Korn and Stained at Circuit of the Americas. That'll be coming up right around 8:20. So lots of ground to cover between now and 9. We thank you for being with us. In a moment, Shannon's Salty Shakedown. But first, how about a little sports history? This day in sports history, May 21st. May 21st, 1948. New York Yankee Joe DiMaggio hits for the cycle. A single, a double, a triple, and a home run. But his biggest accomplishment, he would marry Marilyn Monroe. That impresses me. Hitting for the cycle, meh. You marry Marilyn Monroe? Okay. Yeah, you impress me. Joe DiMaggio. Born on this day. Not born on this day. On this day. It's sports history. Birthdays are coming up. On this day in 1966, Muhammad Ali, the greatest, wins via technical knockout over Henry Cooper in 6 innings. The heck am I saying, Shannon? I'm not even drinking yet. 6 rounds. Wins in 6 rounds of TKO over Henry Cooper for the heavyweight boxing title. Maintains the heavyweight boxing title. This day in 1996, Ken Griffey Jr., at the age of 26, becomes the youngest baseball player to achieve 200 home runs. Ken Griffey Jr. was pretty good. And finally, on this day in 1997, Blue Jays pitcher and former Longhorn Roger Clemens beats the New York Yankees for his 200th win. Interesting, because he would be a New York Yankee. That's this day in sports history. How about some sports birthdays? Born on this day in 1923, Ara Parseghian, the longtime Notre Dame head coach, legendary Notre Dame head coach. He also coached at Northwestern. Ara Parseghian was born in Akron, Ohio, the birthplace of LeBron James. I did not know that. Akron's put out some legendary sports figures over the years. Born on this day in 1935, American College Football Hall of Fame halfback and later national championship head coach Johnny Majors. Johnny Majors was born in Lynchburg, Tennessee on this day in 1935. And Shannon, in 1976, Johnny Majors coached the University of Pittsburgh to the national championship. You don't think of Pittsburgh as a college power to win a national championship.
No.
And in 1976, he had a pretty good running back when he won the national championship, who won the Heisman Trophy. His name was Tony Dorsett. And Tony Dorsett later started calling himself Tony Dorsett. But when Tony Dorsett, out of Aliquippa, Pennsylvania, first went to Pittsburgh, he was actually called Tony Dorsett and later Dorsett. I'm just saying. And interestingly, Dorsett, one of the few players ever to win the national championship, the Heisman Trophy, then go on in the NFL and win the Super Bowl the next year, which he did for the Dallas Cowboys.
Man, it was all downhill for him.
Yeah, right. Yeah. What are you going to do for an encore, Tony Dorsett? Pretty darn cool. Born on this date in 1981, baseball player, and he's had a troubled career and still has some issues. Josh Hamilton, was former Texas Ranger, among other teams. Josh Hamilton, born this day in 1981. But finally, Shannon, I saved the best for last. Here's your entree. Born on this day in 1977, American College Football Hall of Fame running back, 1998 Heisman Trophy winner, Pro Bowler with the Miami Dolphins, born in San Diego, California on this day in 1977, appreciates his weed, Ricky Williams. Happy birthday to Ricky Williams. Woo!
That Big Brother contestant.
Was he in the Big Brother house?
He did Celebrity Big Brother. I don't watch that show, but I do remember him having some highlight moments of
Very nice.
He was being like, "What is he saying?"
I
Kind of talks in weird circles.
Yeah, I do. It's one of my guilty pleasures. Big Brother in the summer, hosted by Julie Chen, a USC grad and wife of Les Moonves, and now she's Julie Chen Moonves. Now that CBS kicked him out for apparently harassing ladies at the office, but Julie's still with him. I guess it's a good gig. All right, but I digress. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. You know it, you love it. You can't get enough of it. Here it is, your salty shakedown.
We talked some Astros earlier. They are now number one.
Yes.
Beating former number one
Astros!
Bats are on fire. They've been traveling the country this year, just working as hard as they can to get to that number one spot after starting hot, going through a bit of a slump, and then coming back. And through their travels, they've seen trash cans on the field. They've seen people try and show up in Oscar the Grouch costumes. They've been heckled. But it's not just the Astros team that's being heckled. Former Astros players that are no longer playing with the Astros
Wow.
are getting heckled. Last night, Josh Reddick, who had been playing with the Arizona Diamondbacks minor league team, was called up and played last night against the Dodgers, who, for those who need a reminder, is the team that the Astros beat in the World Series in 2017 to win it all. Well, he had 4 at-bats. He didn't play so well. But at one point, the Dodgers organist, who we all know and love, a good organ player.
Oh, yeah.
At a baseball game, decided to play I Saw the Sign for Mr. Josh Reddick as he took the mound.
Oh, beautiful.
Home plate, rather.
I saw the sign.
I mean,
oh, man.
can it get any better than that? I think that might take the lead, even though he is now wearing an Arizona jersey. I mean, that almost makes it better that he's being heckled for something that has now happened 4 years ago.
4 years ago and on another team.
He's on another team. He was playing minor league up until yesterday.
I didn't know Josh Reddick was in the minors. My God, has he fallen?
To the minors.
My goodness.
Minor league team. So, Dodgers. I mean, I get that. Okay, it's the Dodgers. It's not like, the Astros have had some heckling from around the country, and the Dodgers are the ones that were most scorned by the 2017 World Series, as they were the ones who were beaten. But the fact that the organist was like, I'm gonna take my, I'm gonna have my moment here. I'm gonna have my 15 minutes of fame. I've been saving this one. I saw the sign.
Wow.
Josh Reddick. And if you go to Twitter or any of the social sites, you search his name, that video will pop up. The song is clear as day. People are singing along. It's probably one of the better troll jobs I've seen thus far in this Astros saga that just won't go away. Can we think of another song that maybe they should play?
We'll have to work on that. I like you. My gosh, that was a stroke of genius. Even though I'm an Astros fan and I'm a little over people mocking the Astros 4 years later. That was creative. I tip my Astros cap on Facebook Live. I tip my Astros cap to the Dodgers organist for that idea.
Unfortunately for Mr. Josh Reddick, he did not see the sign, as the write-ups are saying, because he struck out. I guess the intro music got the best of him. All right, we've talked a little bit of Tim Tebow today. It's now been 24 hours since he's officially signed on as a Jacksonville Jaguar. He's sporting the number 85 jersey. A lot of people noted that he looked huge when he showed up to practice, but that he was in great spirits and laughing and chatting with his new teammates. There's already prop bets for him, Chris.
Oh, I love it.
Dude hasn't even officially made the roster, but there are already prop bets going around. However, these prop bets lead most to believe that the likelihood of him making the team or making the team and then contributing in a major way very low, as the plus minus for the tight end receiving yards for Tim Tebow, 12.5, and receiving TDs, 0.5.
0.5.
You like those numbers for a guy like Tebow? Should he make that 53-man roster?
I hope they go higher. I mean, I am pulling for the guy. I hope he makes the roster. I hope he contributes. I hope the numbers wind up being higher. But I love that there are already prop bets. That's fantastic.
Do you think if he was offered a practice squad spot that he'd take it?
That's a great question.
Practice squad member, you have the opportunity due to injury or whatever to be called up.
Yeah.
But he does. I mean, I'm not going to be like, he loves the spotlight, but he does in a way. He likes to put in the work that'll get him there. I don't know what else he's doing in his free time other than, the speeches he does from time to time.
Yeah.
If he would commit to that.
It's a great question. My guess is, being a team player, if he commits to the team, is that he would do it. But, we shall see if that ever happens.
All right, more in the world of the NFL. Earlier this week, we got news that the Washington football team was replacing their grass on their field that they've had since 1997, and that they hoped this new grass would last them until 2027 when their current contract with the current stadium ends. Well, I guess they really are planning on ending that contract in 2027 because Dan Snyder was found by paparazzi in LA and they asked him a few questions because, of course, Dan Snyder, talk about a villain in the sports world. He is certainly one of them. He and apparently 11 people, so a group of 12, are traveling the country looking at stadiums and taking it all in, seeing all the differences they have to offer, all the new innovations. FedEx Field, obviously, one of like the older, kind of more classic stadiums. It's, very open. I'd be curious to see if they do, when they do build a new stadium, if they'll enclose it, because the weather there is, when it's bad, and I would not want to be playing in that weather in Washington. But they're also traveling the world, which a little interesting. I get that stadiums are so much more than the field of play now, right? There's, the conference rooms. There's, if you're Jerry Jones, the art exhibits. So I get, maybe you check out a soccer stadium here or there. But at the end of the day, I think you'd be just fine checking out Jerry's World or SoFi Stadium or the stadium in Vegas and kind of being done. This, I guess, is just all preliminary because they don't have a spot to put this new stadium yet. Which is a big piece of it. I don't know what comes first, the spot or the renderings, and then the spot. I'm not sure, but he is certainly on his way, and he hopes that this new stadium will be built by 2027. Pretty optimistic, as I guess they're just now getting started. But he's on a world tour, Chris, checking out stadiums.
Hopefully he's not harassing women on airplanes, which was some of the reports of Washington football team employees flying on those planes. And so, I mean, he is a villain. I don't like the guy. I think the league should have put him out of the league a long time ago. These owners clearly close ranks because I think they're worried if they ever do anything untoward that maybe they would lose their position as an owner. It's a cash cow to be an owner in the National Football League. But so, yeah, I guess it gives him an excuse to be on a world tour. So enjoy yourself, Dan Snyder, because I don't enjoy you.
Well, in the thought of cash, because I guess you could technically define this as a business trip. You think he's using some Washington football team funds to take him and his 11 buddies around the country and then the world to visit these stadiums? And he also said, we're also having fun along the way.
Yeah.
So it's not all business. It's not all touring stadiums and facilities.
Well, and it's not all business, and we know that Dan Snyder likes his pleasure. So yeah, I'm sure they're stopping wherever they can to find some pleasure on this world tour. But yeah, I mean, is he using Washington football team funds? Maybe, but certainly on that level of wealth, you look at what people write off in taxes, and you look at on a mega level of wealth, how the wealthy can avoid paying taxes or have things like these world tours paid for or as a tax write-off. And certainly he will say it's a business expense. So yeah, he's enjoying the high life, Mr. Dan Snyder.
I just think it's a very Dan Snyder thing to do. It's a work vacay, probably more of a vacay, but we'll look forward to that new stadium when and if it arrives and how it will arrive. It'll be interesting if it looks and copies a lot of what Jerry did, because everyone loves that stadium.
Yeah.
Here in Arlington. It truly is a masterpiece. There you have it. Today's Salty Shakedown.
Outstanding. And a couple of things coming out of the Salty Shakedown. Again, I love the organist for the Dodgers when Josh Reddick came up to bat playing I Saw the Sign. You asked the question, what other songs could be played when Astros come up to bat? Chris Gonzalez on Facebook Live wrote Rockwell's Somebody's Watching Me. That's very funny. Background vocals, by the way, on Rockwell's Somebody's Watching Me is Michael Jackson, if you listen closely. Barry Gordy was the uncle of Rockwell. Barry Gordy, who ran Motown Records. And obviously he knew Michael Jackson. So when they tried to launch Rockwell's career in the 1980s, he got Michael Jackson to do background vocals on Somebody's Watching Me.
At that time, though, right, the features weren't really a thing. So Michael isn't credited on that song. Is he?
Yeah.
I mean, everyone knows it because you hear that.
Yeah,
voice.
you hear. Yeah, it's very easy.
I mean, now almost every song you hear on the radio that's new is a feature.
Yep.
Or the original then has a feature because it gives it new life.
Yes.
I've always found that interesting about that song.
It is kind of cool. And then there's that song, completely different artist, Money for Nothing, Chicks for Free. In the background, also uncredited on that song, is Sting singing I Want My MTV. In the very background of that song at the end, you can hear the voice of Sting, and that's also uncredited. Now, speaking of songs, though, so I do like, as Chris Gonzalez mentions, Somebody's Watching Me by Rockwell for the Dodgers. You meant this whole punking Josh Reddick. It reminds me, Shannon, of the greatest punking ever, and it was kind of in bad taste, but still just blows my mind. The LA Dodgers had a pitcher in the 80s. His name was Steve Howe, and Steve Howe was kicked out of the league. He would abuse cocaine. He had a big time alcohol and cocaine issue. So like the 81 or 82 season, the Dodgers are in San Francisco playing the San Francisco Giants, and Steve Howe was a bullpen pitcher. So Tommy Lasorda makes a pitching change. So the pitcher that's on the mound is leaving. So walking out of the bullpen is number 57, Steve Howe, and the public address. It wasn't an organist, but they played the music for him to walk out to on the mound. Eric Clapton's song "Cocaine." It's like now, cocaine. So it was important. The Astro management flipped out. They talked to the media. They sent a letter to the San Francisco Giants. They said that it was horrible. It was insensitive. It was vulgar. This guy's trying to get straight, and you play cocaine as he's. But again, from a creative trolling punking standpoint, you gotta be impressed that somebody would make that decision and put it out there in a ballpark to go after an opponent.
I thought you were gonna say like somebody flower bombed him.
Ooh, no,
The flower was the other white stuff.
that would have been another idea. Too bad somebody didn't do that in conjunction with Eric Clapton's cocaine.
Go all in.
Would have been very, very nice. All right, coming up, very excited to have him on the show. Mr. Antonio Daniels, a longtime 13-year NBA career, one-time San Antonio Spur, has got a Spurs championship ring, was a big part of the Spurs' first championship. So we will talk with Antonio Daniels coming up in just a moment. He continues to be a San Antonio resident. We'll talk with him about all things NBA. Also, and again, Shannon, just because I heard Robert Horry talking about it yesterday on the Dan Patrick Show, we'll get Antonio Daniels' thoughts on Greg Popovich. Antonio Daniels, a man who knows Pop and has played for Pop. So we will talk to Antonio coming up also at 8:35 on a morning that there's a little Rockwell for you. Thank you, Jeremy. Good call. Little Rockwell to play us out. James Allen of the Pro Football Hall of Fame at 8:35 on a morning that Shannon tells me Roger Staubach will be introducing Drew Pearson when he is inducted into the Hall this August. Lots more coming up. Oh, and your chance, around 8:20, your chance to win tickets to go see Stained and Korn at the Circuit of the Americas coming up. We got that for you as well. Sports update at the top of the hour. Lots coming at you. Thanks for hanging out with us. She is Shannon Salty Sweeney. He is the boy wonder, Jeremy Fouts. With you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show.
We'll try to get through this. My sister's husband. There have been so many rumors, so many misconceptions, so many things that we think we know. Been Ricky, because of individuals who are still in my life, right up till this Mark Lucas, those guys stepped up for me. Who was there in the gym with me as I tried to get myself. Earlier this summer, I got invited outside, sort of backyard pool. And I was warming up and hung out in the worst one shooting machine and asked him to leave me alone. Was there any way to help me through with whatever I needed? And to the coaches, I'm not even trying to name all of them. To my teammates, Dave, obviously, I had 140 teammates. That I was given in my 19 years there. Not to try to name all of them, I walked into a team led by David with individuals like Avery Johnson, Vinny Del Negro, Sean Elliott, Monty Williams. That team morphed into a younger crew of us with myself, Antonio Daniels, Malik Rose, Bruce Bowen, but we knew how to run a team because of that. We knew how to be a team because of those.
Yeah, I just double checked. I thought Tim Duncan mentioned Antonio Daniels in his acceptance speech, and he did. I just went back and looked at it and made sure that I had that right. So that's very cool. Okay. All right. Okay. Leo Zambrano, good morning. Beth Settle, good morning. It is so weird. Okay, let's see here. We got Antonio Daniels, I think, on the line with Jeremy, which will be cool. He's a great guy. I got to pull up his basketball camp information. So, thank you, sir. Ages 7 to 17. AntonioDanielsCamps.com. Okay. Here we come. Wes Perkins. Thank you, sir.
This is the Now, Chris Duel.
The sports weekend is upon us. Golden State Warriors, Memphis Grizzlies tonight, NBA playoffs over the weekend, NASCAR at COTA in Austin, Austin FC watch party with Shannon Salty Sweeney at High Five in Austin, PGA Championship, Major League Baseball, Astros back in first place. So much going on. Welcome in. It is the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney, and I am so excited to have this man on the program with us. longtime NBA player, 13-year NBA veteran, former San Antonio Spur, won a championship with the San Antonio Spurs in 1999, Sirius XM NBA host, and the color analyst for the New Orleans Pelicans, the one and only Antonio Daniels. Antonio, how are you doing this morning?
I am blessed. Chris, how you doing, brother?
I am great, and I am, as you know, I'm a big fan of yours, and so is Shannon. Well, first, let me introduce you to Shannon. Shannon, this is Antonio Daniels. Say hi to Antonio.
Hey, you're the original AD, right?
No, I'm not.
Oh.
Adrian is the original AD. We're far down the line. How you doing, Shannon?
I'm doing well. I'm so excited to have you today.
I love Adrian Dantley out of Notre Dame. I remember Adrian Dantley. I'm an old guy, Antonio. I watched him play back at Notre Dame.
Oh, yeah, I hear that all the time. No, you're the original AD. No, I'm not. You're close. No, I can't take credit for something like that. Not at all.
That is beautiful. Well, Antonio, I heard your name last weekend. I'm watching the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame, and obviously your friend Tim Duncan is inducted, and he gets up and he said, I had 140 teammates over the years, somebody told me, and he only named a few players, and one of the players he named was Antonio Daniels. I mean, obviously, you know, the two of you have a friendship and a relationship, and obviously the two of you have made an impact on one another, but how cool of Tim to bring you up in his acceptance speech.
Oh, yeah, big time. You know, he actually invited me to go to the ceremony and join him, but because of the Pelican schedule of playing on Friday and then turning around and playing on Sunday, and the Hall of Fame being on a Saturday and way out in kind of the middle of nowhere, so to speak, I couldn't make it. But I sat there and I watched the entire ceremony, and I was touched, man. People don't understand how far our relationship goes back, all the way back to the draft and the pre-draft camps, and us being roommates all the way back then. I don't know if it's because of Daniels, Duncan, and it being in alphabetical order or whatever it may be, but our friendship started all the way back in 1997. And here we sit now 24 years later, and our children have grown up together. We've maintained a very, very close relationship. We still talk all the time. I was honored that he would even mention me, especially knowing the amount of teammates that he's had over his storied career.
Well, Antonio, you mentioned y'all's storied past and great friendship that you have. When within Tim's career were you like, yeah, this guy's going into the Hall of Fame? Like that's my best friend right there.
You know, I never really thought about it like that. You know, toward the end of his career, and by the end, you know, you start talking about the last 4 or 5 years of his career. You start thinking to yourself, this is by far the best power forward to ever put on a pair of shoes. You know, so you don't think about the Hall of Fame. You're kind of past the Hall of Fame because, with all due respect to those that are enshrined, there are a lot of them, but there are not very many of them that can say, you know what, I'm in the Hall of Fame, but I am the best ever at my particular position, which Tim Duncan can say. So you kind of knew the Hall of Fame was coming just because of the way that his career was progressing early on. But as it got toward the twilight of his career, and, you know, he started to talk about retirement and how much these back-to-backs were starting to impact his body. Then it came less about the Hall of Fame and more about, man, this dude is the best power forward to ever lace up a pair of basketball shoes. How incredible that is.
Absolutely. We're talking with NBA analyst and NBA veteran Antonio Daniels. And Antonio, what just strikes me about Tim Duncan, in addition to being the greatest power forward ever, is just who he is. His demeanor is so unlike so many other NBA players. I heard somebody on national radio saying this week that, you know, if Tim Duncan played in Boston or New York or LA or Miami, he would probably be viewed as one of the top 3 or 5 players of all time. But A, he played in San Antonio, and B, He never sought the spotlight. He was never beating his chest. He was never saying, dig me, give me some love. I mean, I'm still amazed. And you look at that speech, Antonio, the speech to me typified who he was. He was humble. He was deferring thanks and gratitude to people in his life like you who impacted his life. It was just, to me, the speech typified what kind of a man he is.
Okay, I'll say this, Chris. I disagree with that statement.
Okay.
If Tim Duncan, not yours, I'm talking about the national narrative.
Yes.
Duncan played in New York, or Tim. Like you think about the last 20 plus years that Tim Duncan was in San Antonio. All of those teams that you mentioned, the Knicks and Boston, and all of these quote unquote big markets, weren't nearly as relevant.
Yeah.
So no. I'm not. I'm not with the whole he was in a big market thing. You know what? Tim Duncan did it the right way. He did it organically. San Antonio Spurs did it the right way. They grew it from the ground up. So they weren't all about going and joining and doing this and that. You know what they said? Let's draft right. Let's do our due diligence in the draft, not just with Tim Duncan. That was the obvious thing. David Robinson, that was the obvious thing. But think about how many people look past Tony Parker. Think of how many people look past Manu Ginobili. And these guys are first ballot Hall of Famers. You know, you look at guys like Bruce Bowen, these kind of guys, understanding how to bring in guys that weren't in the prime of their career but still had championship experience. Guys like Steve Kerr, guys like Mario Elie. So this whole, if Tim Duncan played in the bigger market, national narrative thing, I'm not on board with all that. He did exactly what he was supposed to do with what he was given.
Well,
Amen.
Sticking with that national market narrative, it's kind of become a thing around Zion Williamson, of course, a guy that you've come to know pretty well, being so close with the Pelicans. But I think that young core of him and Ball are great. They're great for that city. But there is kind of word that, he said something about how playing in New York, it was the Mecca, right? And people are like, oh, he wants to go to New York. He wants a bigger market. New Orleans isn't big enough for him. But how much, from your perspective and getting to know him and watching him play, it seems like he really is a part of New Orleans and that city. And like he should be there for a while.
And that's the thing. Like when you have these conversations about bigger markets and small markets and the national narrative makes it seem like if you're successful in a small market, you're doing something wrong. They would almost rather you be unsuccessful in a big market than successful in a small one, which doesn't make sense to me. I've never grasped that concept. So think of the conversation that we're having around Zion Williamson. He has played a total of 85 games. Total. That's it. He's played a total of 85 games, and what the national narrative is, and this started before he even completed 85 games. This started when he was at 70 games or so, when we actually went to Madison Square Garden. And just think, before he even completed a full NBA season, which is 82 games, people were already talking about the fact that maybe he needs to go play elsewhere. Why? He has all of the national endorsements. He's with Brand Jordan. He's with Gatorade. He's with 2K. The New Orleans Pelicans were second in the NBA in nationally televised games. One game behind the Los Angeles Lakers. So what can a big market offer him that New Orleans can? Is the question that I ask.
Wow.
Everything that you would want from a big market right now, he is receiving from a small market.
Those are excellent points, and nobody knows the situation better than you do, Antonio, as the color analyst for the New Orleans Pelicans. How has it been for you in New Orleans, Antonio? I mean, we talked about Tim Duncan. You had a front row seat to his greatness, and now a front row seat to the beginning of what should be a stellar career for Zion Williamson. How is the experience for you?
Well, this is what I tell you, Chris. Last year before COVID hit, I was at every practice, at every training camp. We eat with the team, we travel with the team, so you really get an opportunity to get to know these guys. And I remember last year, when the season started, I went on different platforms and I said, you know what, man, this guy's one of one in the history of the sport. And me playing 13 years and then covering the NBA after 4 years with the Oklahoma City Thunder and then doing Sirius XM, all this stuff. I've never seen anyone like him. You look at his size, his strength, his athletic ability, his explosiveness, his quick twitch muscles, his second jump, All of these things packed into one. I've never seen it. And you know, people told me, they said, you know what, man, the Pelicans are paying you to say that. You're just saying that because you're biased. And now people are starting to realize what I saw last year from day one of training camp. This young man is special. He is special. It's amazing when the scouting report is out on you as far as what it is that you want to do, that people still can't stop it. He averaged 20 points in the paint. You know what everybody says? Well, all you have to do against Zion is fill in the blank. All you got to do is back up. All you got to do is build a wall, and everybody tried it. This young man is special, and he is just scratching the surface. And I'll tell you this, though, Chris. What I really love about him is not just his game. I love his disposition. I love his mannerisms. I love the humble heart that he was blessed with. This guy is not a jerk. Every star in this league is not a people person. I'll say that. This guy is. You will love everything about him from the top of his head to the bottom of his feet, as far as everything that he encompasses. You want for your organization and for your fan base.
Antonio, I want to turn our focus to you here because you have your annual basketball camp coming up this summer, June 21st through 25th. I love when athletes come back to either where they played or where they grew up and give back and provide these camps for these kids, because for these kids, seeing athletes like yourself is once in a lifetime. And to say they got to learn from the best is incredible. How meaningful is it for you to get to take part in these? Because growing up, I don't know if you ever thought, hey, I'm going to have my own camp one day where all these local kids are going to come who look up to me and I'm going to get to teach them what I know.
Well, you know what, I went to school. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. So from the inner city of Columbus, Ohio. Columbus, Ohio doesn't have any professional teams. The closest you have is Cincinnati Bengals or the Cleveland Browns or the Cleveland Cavaliers. So I never got an opportunity when I was a child to go and see an NBA athlete speak or represent himself outside of what I saw on television. And now this is my 20th year actually doing this camp, and it's something that if anyone's ever been to my camp knows and understands that I'm passionate about. Like, this is it for me. I grew up with a single mom. I was raised by a single mother. And I say that to say this. My voice that I have for that entire week may be the only voice or the positive voice that some of these kids get to hear from a male role model. So I take this responsibility on, and I do not take it lightly. I love doing it. I am passionate about it. I will continue to do it until the Lord calls me in a different direction. But this is 20 years for me. This is 20 years of doing camp for me, and this is something that I truly love and I truly embrace. I tell parents all the time, this is the best camp that your child will attend, because it's not just a basketball camp. It's not a camp. If you come and you're a good basketball player and you leave the same person, then I failed you. Our job is to grow these kids into young men and young women of honesty and integrity with that entire week that we have with them.
Oh, man, I absolutely love it, Antonio, and especially because, you know, of who you are. I mean, you're not just a guy who knows basketball, obviously. You're a man of faith. You're a man of integrity. And as you mentioned, you know, part of what you're doing with this camp is, you know, molding lives and providing male role models to these basketball players. I want to make sure we've got all the information correct, and I want to get the information out there, Antonio, and we will tweet it out on our websites as well. The 20th annual Antonio Daniels basketball camp this June 21st through the 25th. It's open to 7 to 17-year-olds, and the website, AntonioDanielsCamps.com, AntonioDanielsCamps.com. Any other information regarding the camp as far as how to get to it and how to become a part of the camp, Antonio?
Yeah, it's co-ed, so it's boys and girls. And if you have a child that is 6 years old that is accustomed to playing organized sports, then they're welcome as well. You know, every kid will be fed, so we provide lunch for the children. Every kid will get a T-shirt. A camp T-shirt, but we have a All-Star game on the last day. Tim has come and played. Tim actually played in the All-Star game the last time I had camp.
Wow.
Malik Rose has come and played in the All-Star game. So it's different guys that we have relationship with that has come. Danny Green has come to speak at camp. I talked to Keldon Johnson. this year about coming to speak at camp and playing with the kids in the All-Star game. So it's a lot that we have going on, but the biggest thing is not about the names. It's not about the names affiliated with the camp, not for me. It's about the impact and opportunity that we are blessed to have on the younger generation.
It is just absolutely phenomenal. Again, and spread the word if you're listening right now to anyone who has a child. Remember, it's co-ed, ages 7 to 17. Website, Antonio Daniels Camps. It's coming up in June 21st through the 25th. Antonio is a great follow on Twitter as well. He is on Twitter at ADaniels33, ADaniels33. Antonio, we love talking with you. We are huge fans. I love that you and your family have maintained a home in San Antonio, and I'd love to do this again, man. If you're free anytime before or after the camp, I'd love to talk about the camp again and just talk everything basketball and everything life with you. Thank you so much for hanging out with us this morning.
For sure, Chris. And I'll tell you this, the next time I come on, I would love to talk about the whole Pop situation. I saw you tweeted something out yesterday, and people were kind of talking about it's time for Pop to go, and the game is passing by, and all this other kind of stuff. So next time, when we have a little bit more time, I would love to talk about the double standard that exists in professional sports.
Antonio, I will contact you, and as soon as you're available, man, we would love it. It's a conversation that I think our listeners need to hear and need to hear from you with your perspective on it. So absolutely, sir. Antonio Daniels, we love you, man. Great luck with the camp, and we'll continue to spread the word about the camp. Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless you. God bless you, Chris. God bless you, Shannon. You guys have a blessed day.
God bless you, Antonio Daniels. Shannon, how great of an interview. How great of a guy is he?
I need to meet this man.
You must.
I need to attend his camp. Can iHeart send us to his camp and put us up? And
let's
I
try to work
in the All-Star game.
Let's seriously.
Let's get my ass handed to me from NBA players.
I want to be in that gym. I want to be in that gym for the All-Star game. Absolutely.
I'd probably shoot better than Danny Green.
And you should have told him you played basketball. You were a high school basketball player
or whatever.
Woo! You need to take Antonio to the hoop. Show him a thing or two. All right.
My uncle sent me some really embarrassing high school photos of me playing basketball the other day.
We should post them.
Bury these and
we should post those. All right, we were talking with Antonio Daniels at 8:20. I'm sorry I'm a little bit late, but I just couldn't pull myself away from Antonio Daniels. We were shooting for 8:20, but it's 8:24. We're close. Shannon, an opportunity for some people to score some really cool tickets right now.
Yes, and your last opportunity of the week to score tickets to see Korn featuring Stained at Germania Insurance Amphitheater out at Coda in September 18th. It is a Saturday, perfect night for a concert at one of the best venues in Austin. We're going to make it work today. All right. We're going to do caller number 8.
Ooh.
He's Korn and Stained tickets. Just hit up Jeremy. I can see him right now on our video feed. He's got his hands hovering over the phone right now. So call 1-800-707-9760, 1-800-707-9760. Caller number 8 going to get those tickets to see Korn and Stained this September.
I'm already seeing the phone lines light up. So good luck, everybody. And if you're one of the first ones and Jeremy says you're number 1, hang up and call right back. You might still get in at number 8 if you get lucky. Coming up, lots to talk to him about. And I can't wait to, by the way, Antonio, we were kind of running out of time. So that's why we didn't get to Pop with Antonio. But I love that he will come back and talk Pop with us. And so we will book that and get Antonio Daniels back at his earliest convenience. Coming up, James Allen of the Pro Football Hall of Fame on a morning that Shannon tells me that Roger Staubach will introduce and present Drew Pearson for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We'll talk some Tebow with James Allen, and James Allen, a San Antonio dude. I might bring up his thoughts on Coach Greg Popovich and what the future may hold. Always fascinating to talk with James Allen coming up. We are with you till 9. We'll tell you who won the concert tickets, and we will scour the world of sports, see if there's anything popping. We'll take a look at the leaderboard at the PGA Championship as well. She is Shannon Salty Sweeney. I'm Chris, with you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Yeah, Louisa, I mean, he's what a great guy. Antonio Daniels. I love him. Christopher, I disagree. I know a lot of people say that, but I disagree. He is a genius. He is, in my view, the greatest coach in basketball history. And I think he's still got a lot of basketball knowledge and ability. And you're not going to find another Pop. You're not going to find a 30% Pop out there as a replacement. So as long as he wants to ride this train, I say we ride this train. Yeah, Axel, Tom Flores, totally agree with you on that. And Charles Woodson. Okay, let's see here. James Allen coming right up. Greg Helt, thank you. I'll check that out. Let me write that down. Waterevent.com. Dean Stone, welcome in. Jason Paniagua, Christopher Summers, Axel Miller.
We have James.
Thank you, sir. Did he request any music coming in? He sometimes does.
Yeah, he was hoping for Jump Around by House of Pain. Do you mind if I play that Joan Jett song that AD wanted on the way out? Because he was asking for it for his daughter. Would that bother you, or do you want the regular end song?
Oh, either.
Okay.
Jump around. We're jumping around on a Friday. Get big sports weekend. So much going on. Austin, San Antonio, nationally on television. Chris Duel show, along with Shannon Salty Sweeney. And actually, Jeremy Fouts, our boy wonder soundscape stylist, tells me that song, Jump Around, by request of our next guest from the Pro Football Hall of Fame, James Allen. James Allen, how are you this morning?
Good morning. Welcome back, Chris. Good morning, Shannon. And thank you to my brother on the soundscape. I appreciate him very much. I needed that this morning.
Yeah, it is interesting. And I noticed that, when Jeremy's here and, Dave is our other soundscape stylist, especially in the morning, the right kind of music can kind of get you going, give you a lift. I think that song is one of those.
Yes, it is. That's why I got it. So let's get going.
So, all right, speaking of getting a lift, Shannon informed me, and I'm sure you already probably knew because you are in the know and a Pro Football Hall of Fame guy. Drew Pearson, as we know, headed into the Pro Football Hall of Fame this August. And while it seems like a no-brainer, to know that it's official is beautiful. The man who will present him is number 12, Roger Staubach. And I was telling Shannon, James, if I could pick 2 football players to hang out with, it's like in the universe of football players, if I could just pick only 2, it would be Roger Staubach and Drew Pearson. I am so excited that this is going to happen in Canton, Ohio at the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah, we got to keep that under a lid. Yes, I knew about that. And I'll say this, when it comes to class, as far as an individual, they may not be in a class by themselves, but I can promise you in that classroom, it doesn't take long to call rolls. So they're amazing individuals. I spent a lot of time with Roger. Yeah, I agree with you. I would the other person on my list, and I share this with our president CEO David Baker, is Marv Levy. I would put him as a coach. But yeah, I agree with you.
James, I saw yesterday on the Hall of Fame's Twitter account that they're now selling Super Bowl tickets for the upcoming Super Bowl. Now, I looked at the pricing. A little bit out of my budget. But it does look like it's an actual experience. Listen, the McDonald's value menu is out of my budget, sir. But it looks like it's much more than just a Super Bowl ticket. I mean, it's an entire experience. So what's the difference between the experience you get with just a normal Super Bowl ticket versus getting one through the Hall of Fame?
You know, I'm not on that end of things. I know they're doing the Hall of Fame experience at the Hall of Fame, where like if you, instead of just getting a ticket for the enshrinement, you can do the Hall of Fame experience, you go to autograph sessions, meet players, have VIP access. I was not aware, and I have to go back to our agendas. We've been doing so many meetings. In fact, the chairman actually came in town to meet with me just last week, and there's so much going on. I thought that was just I knew we were doing that on the Hall of Fame, the fan experience, but I know Commissioner Goodell does a lot of tickets to the Hall of Fame for the Super Bowl, but obviously not to be disingenuous to the fans, but I'm not in that rodeo, so aware of that.
James, you said something earlier, and I want to come back and circle back and ask you about it because, I talked about my 2 favorite players that I would sit in a room with at any time, Drew Pearson, Roger Staubach, and you bring up Coach Marv Levy, and I know, for Cowboy fans who are old like me, we remember Marv Levy as the head coach of the Buffalo Bills. And while I do recall him as, being remarkable and being brilliant and giving great speeches and interviews, but what is it about Marv Levy that stands out to you, James Allen? I mean, and you're a guy who has met so many Hall of Famers, and there's a lot of names you could choose from. What is it about Marv Levy that makes you value him as just one of the best coaches and a guy you obviously would spend time with given the opportunity?
I would say, if I had to boil it down, obviously we're on radio, so we need to make it short. I would say that he really embraced the psychology of how to get to these young kids. A lot of these kids didn't have, they had fathers growing up, had traumatic situations. Marv became like a father, and I'll give you the example. I mean, Thurman, great running back, took him to 3 Super Bowls in a row. He, instead of saying, I remember one of his things that Thurman said, instead of saying on a crucial play, he said, instead of saying, Thurman, on this, we get the first down, don't fumble, he would say, hey, Thurman, just grab the ball 2 hands, right? Or 2 hands, right? And he'd show him with it. And I know that doesn't mean much, but when you're with that adrenaline and the nervous and the fans yelling, it's the psychology of football back then was, yell, scream, kick, butt, everything else, except for, of course, Tom Landry. Everybody's, chewing butt and everything else. Marv would relate to them psychologically in a positive way while coaching them. And if you know his background, Harvard lawyer, I mean, he didn't come out to be a coach. And so he didn't take the game as this hard-nosed, this is football, you got to yell, scream at people, and you better not fumble, you better catch that pass. And I can give you a bunch of psychological things. And his team, you don't go to 3 Super Bowls in a row.
Yeah.
And he just did nobody. And he just is that, he's that guy. When you meet with him, he listens to you, and he thinks about stuff beyond what you're talking about or where you want to go. And he's just fascinating to talk to.
James, what are your thoughts on the future of Ezekiel Elliott with the Dallas Cowboys? He has found himself on the wrong side of things in the news again this morning, this time having to do with his dogs. Apparently, they were not kind to a couple of people and put them in the hospital. So what are your thoughts? I mean, he hasn't been producing on the field the last few seasons in the way he did when he first appeared on the NFL scene. And he keeps continuing to find himself in the media for all the wrong reasons. At this point, he seems more like a distraction than a guy that you want to see on the field week in and week out.
You know, Shannon and Chris, we've talked about this. Really, everything starts with culture. And again, I'm not trying to duck the question, but Ezekiel, there was a running back before him. We talked about this, Chris and Shannon, that did just as well, set all these kind of records, and went to the Philadelphia Eagles because they had the best O-line. And Jerry just, the guy wanted a bunch of money, so Jerry found another guy. And then, as he did with Dak, he strung it out. And then the guy was putting on weight and not training even before his big contract. And, if you went to the Steelers, they would address that ahead of time, or some of the organizations that I think are well more ran from the top down. And this is a product of the culture. They're very reactionary. I can't remember, Chris, the guy that went to the Eagles, and of course he didn't do as well. Because kind of like guys used to leave the Spurs and wanted big contracts and didn't do as well. But, the line, and they're getting older, and he made a bunch of money, and he's just not worried about his fitness, and which happens a lot in football, and owners and GM knows that. You give him a big contract, and then they quit trying. But the signs were all there ahead of time, and again, I think it's just a cultural thing, Shannon. It's kind of it's a mercenary thing, get paid, hold out, get a bunch of money, and then and it's not really a team. It's just not. And I don't mean just be disingenuous to Jerry and Steve. And Steve, I know, is moving around a lot of things, and they're getting better. But that culture and that thing, ever since they fired Jimmy Johnson, has changed, and it's just a cultural thing. He's just a product of that culture.
Gosh, and I'm racking my brain now, and I know it wasn't Marion Barber. It was that era, but he had over 1,000 yards. He wanted more money. Jerry didn't pay him, so he went to the Eagles, and he fell off. And now I'm racking my brain to remember his name. I can't remember his name at the moment. But talking football with James Allen. James, we talked about football coaches. We talked about Marv Levy. Coach Greg Popovich is in the news, and I know you're a big Spurs fan. You're a big San Antonio guy. I was listening yesterday on the Dan Patrick Show, which follows us, a national radio show, and he had Robert Horry, former Spur. Horry's won like 7 rings with the Spurs, the Lakers, and the Rockets. And Dan Patrick said to Robert Horry, he said, I got a feeling, I saw Pop walk off the court after the final game against Memphis, and Dan Patrick said, I got a feeling Pop's going to walk away this offseason. He's going to retire and leave the Spurs. What do you think, Robert? And then Robert goes, yeah, I agree. I think he will. And then Robert Horry said, I think it's time for him to leave, which I absolutely disagree with, James Allen. Now, I know none of us can get inside Pop's head. That's probably one of the most complex brains that any of us will have encountered. But I'm just wondering your thoughts overall at age 72, given where this team is, if you see Pop continuing for a year or two or more, and if you have a gut feeling on this.
I'm not with the Hall of Fame and all the stuff they're going on now. I have not talked to people I know that are in the know. I do want to address all these people that want to get rid of Popovich. Again, and I'm not trying to be disingenuous. I mean, look, if it wasn't for Angela Drosis, there's no Spurs. And then Red McCombs committed to keep him here, even though he could have made a lot of money taking him elsewhere. People don't realize he also, owned the Nuggets. And then the whole family made the same commitment. And when Peter, I know Peter and Julianne went through a massive divorce, and I'm sorry for them. But when Peter stepped down, senior, 4 years ago, it's just a different culture. And I love Peter John, his son, and his daughter. They're great people, but it's just a different thing. And then you take that on top of losing, your wife and everything. I mean, but again, I think it's back to the culture. Peter Holt and his wife, Julianne, I mean, they created a culture over there, kind of like the Patriots. It's about winning. It's about team ball. That's what they're known for. And, when Mr. Holt quit running the Spurs, they went a different direction. And So I don't know how that falls. I don't think the fans realize they're, what coach would you want? So again, I think coaches get too much. There's a great saying by Phil Jackson. I'm not a big Phil Jackson fan, but I agree with this saying. That is, when a coach wins, he gets too much credit, and when he loses, he gets too much blame. I do think that culture, ownership, and GMs who hide in the back are what established the culture. Now, I'm some of the Cowboys. And by the way, Ezekiel Elliott, the guy from the Philadelphia Eagles, could have been tandem running back.
By the way, that was DeMarco Murray. John Williams on Facebook reminded us we were looking for the name DeMarco Murray. Go ahead.
Thank you, John. That could have been. Can you imagine those two running backs switching off, which gives you, wearing down the line, which is what the running back is. So I think it's a cultural thing. I think people need to get off Pop's butt because it's one of the greatest coaches to ever play the game. Before they get into the whole Miami Heat, super teams, everything else, that's the only way you could beat Pop because he played basketball, team way, and shared the ball and no egos. And then, of course, when Mr. Holt went their different way and then gave it to new things, everything kind of changed. And he's just a coach. So I think as a fan perspective, I think people are being very short-sighted. But as far as the man personally, I haven't seen Coach in 3 years, so I have no idea.
All right. Just wanted to pick your brain on that. James Allen, always a pleasure, sir. What are your big weekend plans? Anything, any big high-level meetings with Pro Football Hall of Fame people? Are you traveling to the French Riviera? What do you got going on?
Yeah, I think you're confusing me with somebody else. But however, no, the Hall of Fame, I'm actually not doing anything this weekend. The chairman came in town a couple days ago, and we had some lengthy meetings, one-on-one. And then another Hall of Fame board member has moved here to San Antonio, John Jakeway, and we sat down and talked about a lot of things are going on. A lot of changes are going to be made post-things. So this weekend I'm getting my second shot, which I have.
Good man.
Well, the NFL's requiring me, so I'm getting that done, and that's the extent of my wonderful plans this weekend. I actually had no plans this week.
Well, with that second shot, if it affects you like it affected Shannon and it did me, you may be lying low for about a day, which is fine though. You feel good about it. You've done your duty. You're a good human, and you're doing your part for the cause to eradicate that virus. James Allen of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. James, always love talking with you, man. Thanks for taking the time. Have yourself a great weekend, and I hope the aftermath of the shot goes well for you.
That's why I cleared my schedule. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Chris. Thanks for my the sound stylist. And shout out to Mom and Dad and my family. And I love you guys.
We love you too, James Allen. Thank you so much. Of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So I did not, this thing you talked about, Shannon, Super Bowl tickets with a Super Bowl experience via the Pro Football Hall of Fame. You mentioned the price tag. Do you remember what the price was? Just something astronomical?
Yeah, so I looked at the cheap seats, which would be in the upper deck, right, in the bowl area. And that's when I noticed it's got to be a package because $8,000 for those seats.
Oh my God!
They're on the secondhand market seems like a lot. I think it looks like there's other experiences that you can do throughout that weekend, and then the for those who want to splurge, if you're not splurging already with those, and get these sideline seats, it's going to cost you a cool $18,000, and that's before the taxes and the service fee charges.
My God, just somebody's got some money out there in this economy. We did not. I don't know if you have it in front of you. I've got it in front of me, Shannon. We didn't cite the poll question, but there was a poll question, so some people gravitated to it without being directed to it. Do you have that in front of yourself?
Well, first, I'd like to say I'm a little offended.
I screwed up. I know what you're going to say.
Which of these sporting events are you most excited about this weekend? You put Major League Baseball, NASCAR at COTA, NBA playoffs, PGA Championship, leading the way, PGA Championship, which I'm, of course, excited to sit back and watch more of today, followed by the NBA playoffs, NASCAR at COTA, Major League Baseball tied. And I know you only get 4 options here.
I know. But I screwed up.
But I'm going to be out at High Five and
exactly
the Boston FC match. We're looking for a win. If for those that have never watched a soccer game with a group of people who are also cheering for that team, it is an experience because unlike basketball and football where you see points go up quite often, it's truly the roar when a goal is scored or an amazing save happens. Stuver, the goalkeeper for Austin FC, had an amazing penalty kick save last week. Wasn't enough to win the game because they got 2 more goals on us, but that save in itself from the best player who's currently in the MLS, highest player as well. That was incredible. It's quite the atmosphere. So head out to High Five this weekend and join me in watching that game.
Go hang out with Shannon for Austin FC. Absolutely. Thanks to Shannon. Thanks to Jeremy, Antonio Daniels, Paul Alexander, and James Allen. Thank you, everybody, for being a part of the show. Have yourself a great weekend. We will see you Monday morning, bright and early at 6 a.m. Enjoy. Adios.